watching India Global. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. Let's start the show with headlines. India-US signed terms for first phase of trade deal. New Delhi and Washington pursue trade liberalization. We get you details on that. IAF jet GPS spoofed in Myanmar. Some reports suggest that the GPS spoofing could be another form of weapon of choice in the 21st century. Impact on new age warfare. We come back and talk more on this. Trump administration freezes $2.2 billion in funding to Harvard University, even as clamor grows for what should be the way forward between Trump and universities in America. India's retail inflation eases to a 67-month low of 3.34% in March over 5 years. This has been the lowest. Will this mean another rate cut going forward? RBI watching this very closely. In a move that may very well be the beginning of a new chapter in global trade diplomacy, India and the US have signed the terms of reference for the first phase of the long-awaited trade pact. The deal, that is still in early stages, aims to boost bilateral trade to $500 billion by 2030. That's the goal between India and US. Negotiators will begin virtual talks this month, and there's a key in-person round that's scheduled for next month. President Trump, once critical of India's trade policies, did announce a 90-day pause on new tariff hikes for partners like India. Simultaneously, he ramped up pressure on China. With trade deficits, diplomatic stakes and $500 billion on the line, this is more than just a deal. What does this mean in terms of the trade pact is something that we are going to watch going forward. All right, moving on, there has been a rather dramatic and very strange twist in India's humanitarian mission to quake-struck Myanmar. An Indian Air Force C-130J Hercules carrying critical relief supplies reportedly faced a chilling threat in the skies. Many are claiming it to be GPS spoofing. We still are awaiting what really happened. But we are talking about this because could this be new age warfare? We decode that. On 29th of March, the aircraft encountered navigational anomalies over southern Myanmar, and the crew acted fast, switching to backup systems, avoided disaster. Now, according to some reports, the skies were thick with interference, red zones of spoofing activity lighting up the map. Experts opined that the pattern possibly could mean targeted jamming. Again, there is no final official word on this, but could this be the way forward? Where did it come from? Is it about covert intelligence installations? IAF confirmed the anomaly, raised a pressing question: who is targeting peace missions with weapons of electronic warfare? The skies over Myanmar are no longer just turbulent, they're allegedly contested. And somewhere someone may be testing the limits of peace as well, through precision deception, which is why the big questions that we're asking on India Global today. First up, which is that was IAF jet GPS spoofed over Myanmar? Next question, are foreign powers testing military-grade spoofing technology, something that could really change the way how relief operations happen going forward? The next question I'm asking on India Global today, how vulnerable are military and civilian aircrafts when it comes to digital deception? And lastly, is GPS spoofing becoming the stealth weapon of 21st century? As I said, is this now new age warfare that we are seeing here? With Wing Commander Abhishek Mathivan joining me on the show, along with Bidhayak Das, who's a Southeast Asia expert. Wing Commander Abhishek, let me start by asking you, there are too many questions that are up in the air, and some would say very disturbing questions, isn't it?
Absolutely nothing can be discounted, and the kind of geopolitical situation that prevails in South Asia and, in fact, around the world at present. Testing and checking up of latest technology is an ongoing process, and particularly in a scenario like ours, wherein we have adversaries on the northern front, on the western front, and now with the emerging situation on the eastern front as well. So you can't discount the fact of deliberate spoofing. However, the official statement that has come out from the Air Force is that the IAF crew are well capable of handling such unavailability while ensuring safety of the flight and achievement of the designated tasks or missions.
Okay.
Spoofing the GPS, actually, what it leads to is it actually leads to confusion about the exact position of the aircraft in the air. So,
Indeed.
which consequently creates a confusion on the onboard systems, making the ascertaining of the right position of the aircraft in the air difficult for the air crew.
That's
However,
a
it
very
doesn't
important point.
pose. Yeah, yeah. However, in case of these humanitarian aids where transport aircraft are involved, there are backup systems in place. In fact, the crew have a dedicated navigator on board, consists
Yes.
of a navigator on board. So, in real terms, it won't lead to a major fiasco. But yes, in case of combat missions or something on those lines,
Okay, that's
this
a very
could
important
really
point
be.
you made. Let me quickly get in Bidhayak Das as well on it, that, which is that this may be a relief op. The damage would have been very contained, limited. But what happens if it's not a relief operation? Questions that we are asking become that much more significant in combat situations, Bidhayak Das. Unmute yourself, sir.
Sorry. Thank you. And I said I totally agree with the wing commander that you cannot discount anything, especially in the eastern theater here, in the eastern frontier, the way things have unfolded in the last not 4 years after the coup, but even before that. There's been a level of sophistication that you would not believe. I've spent a lot of time in Myanmar and I've seen the kind of sophistication that I'm not talking about the state here, the military junta has also a level of sophistication that we actually cannot imagine, which is why they're still sustaining themselves. And the non-state actors that is all over Myanmar. If you look from the top tip, the north, right down to the east, where is the Thailand border, you have all these groups spread out, and all of them are highly capable today of using both electromagnetic and electronic warfare and which they are actually doing insofar as their battle is concerned with the military junta, their common enemy inside Myanmar. But just coming back to what happened with the spoofing thing that's
Yes.
going on, and the Indian Air Force has clarified. There was a
Yes.
notum also from the authorities in Mandalay. And given the situation that day on the 28th of March, the earthquake, 7.7 magnitude, the entire support system had collapsed, the ATS had
Yes.
collapsed. So I think we are reading too much into what
Okay.
happened if there was actually an intentional spoofing. But you never know what's happening in Myanmar because,
These
like
are
the wing
disturbing
commander,
questions because they are disturbing times that we are
absolutely,
in. And Wing Commander Datiman, which brings me to ask you that what are the learnings from this specific instance? Because at the end of the day, that is most important, so that similar situations, if they arise not in relief operations time, then the outcomes remain under control.
Just for the information of our viewers, this is not the first time we have faced this kind of a situation. In fact, during operations, going as far back as Op Vijay, during Kargil times, we faced similar kind of problems in contested airspace while the Operation Safed Sagar was on. The IAF aircrafts were able to detect interference with the GPS signals, and so it doesn't come as something very new to the IAF. We had learnt our lessons then, and as far as the aircrew and the machines go, there are backup systems to bank, and consequently the aircrew are always on their toes to deal with such kind of an eventuality. Ultimately, the mission success being the key.
Indeed. Bidhayak Das, the fact you mentioned non-state actors, especially in a zone as hotly contested, as deeply troublesome as Myanmar is. What happens in situations like this when there are too many non-state actors and the state apparatus is weak and incapable of handling situations?
So that's where the danger is, right? Because you have a situation where there is an earthquake, there has to be relief going in, different countries are actually going in with the relief, and you don't know what's happening in the airspace. Which the different actors, what are they really sort of in combat? Because if you've read the news, the Burmese news essentially a day after the earthquake, they all were reporting about airstrikes by the military junta, and there were also counter strikes from different groups, including the PDF. And like I've mentioned, so like you said, it's very, very deep. In fact, we really don't know how deep it is, because there is also a situation we have in the other neighborhood, Bangladesh. And there are lots of experiments going on over there. We have seen the TB2 drones that have been flying around our borders, Meghalaya, Tripura, then the Siliguri corridor. And that's been of huge concern, and there are great security implications because of that. Therefore, the gut feeling I have here is I'm not pointing a finger now at China immediately, because China has a stake, they're bringing in the relief, but there could be other actors. Definitely the ISI could have a plan of its own, that this is a time that we can experiment, and this situation gives us the right kind of opportunity to do some experiments and to see whether we can cause disruptions. I think this is how I would look at the situation insofar as where it could go. But in the non-state actors, I just want to mention this to you. Just want to quickly mention this to you. The non-state actors, which are essentially they are the ethnic armed organizations of Myanmar. They are extremely powerful. The WA, which are essentially the Chinese, they have 50,000 troops, and they have sophistication which are coming from China, trained by China, and these level of sophistication are just not electromagnetic. They are also autonomous electronic warfare systems they've built in place.
All right, so I'll have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me on India Global today on a story that has many implications. The bottom line, viewers, really is that when it comes to new age warfare, it's not just going to be about tanks or AK-47s or missile guns. It's going to be about technology, a domain that can have far-reaching implications, because that's how the new age warfare is set to be designed going forward. And what this instance shows is that when technology can be usurped, it can have far-reaching, devastating consequences, and especially and more so when non-state actors operating across geographies, across boundaries are involved. That is one thing to watch out for when it comes to governments around the world. On that note, we slip into a very short break. We'll come back with more news on the other side. Stay with us. Big Tech is on trial, and at the center of it all is Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg, defending the empire he built in the last decade. On the stand in a Washington court, Zuckerberg pushed ahead against explosive allegations from the FTC, Federal Trade Commission, that claimed that Meta's acquisitions of Instagram and WhatsApp about a decade ago were not innovation but domination. If the FTC succeeds, it could dismantle Meta's crown jewels and half of its ad revenues. Instagram alone is forecasted to earn $37 billion this year. Zuckerberg argued the landscape has changed. TikTok, YouTube, Apple, they're the real rivals now, Zuckerberg argued. But the FTC says Meta still controls the spaces where we connect with friends and family, and that control is illegal. As Trump's White House eyes big tech, the future of Meta and whole of digital communication hangs in balance. We decode what this could mean for the future of big tech in the US and the ongoing fight between Trump and big tech. Joining me is Ivan Mehta, who's a tech reporter, as well as Senthil Nagam, who's the founder of Munim AI. Let me start with you, Mr. Mehta, which is that as things stand right now, this could be a landmark trial and a landmark case, really, that could decide which way big tech goes from here on, not just in the US, but around the world.
Definitely, it's a big trial to watch. We don't know what would be Trump's strategy during this phase about big tech. The case, as we remember, the file by FTC was filed when Trump was last in power. So lot has changed between that. The judge also rejected the case once, and FTC had to refile the case. So that's a very important precedent here in the case. But there is the other precedent that Google was told to break up and initially told to divest Chrome and some of the other products last year. So there is precedent for big tech being broken up in the US now as well.
No, indeed, there is a precedent, and this would also be a precedent, most certainly for the EU, which has been fighting against the big tech for over a decade, much before the US. But Senthil, let me ask you this in terms of the impact this would have industry-wise, the industry-wide implications of this trial, this case. What do you think could that be?
I have a very different opinion. Okay, there are a couple of this so-called FTC case started somewhere around 2020. Okay, social media era is over, AI era has started. Okay, and luckily because of the explosion on XR or VR space, Meta had the GPUs and they have trained a lot of models and they have open sourced it. So that is where we are going towards. What is changing is Chinese control over TikTok was a big issue. The sale has not yet happened. Who will acquire it? So who has more data or training are the ones who will lead this space. Even if somebody is going to split it, either has to become a separate company, will it be viable? Ad revenue for Google is going down, Apple is struggling. If Meta also will lose revenues initially, that's where it goes into play. Okay, so building another behemoth will not serve any purpose. So who will buy TikTok? Let's start with that part. Second part, model. See, they have nearly 4 billion people's data, especially with WhatsApp and Insta and Facebook. Facebook is not a dominant platform at all. No teenagers are there in that platform. That platform is kind of slowly dying. So they can show all the stats to show, hey, this is not the case. Insta is what is generating more revenue. WhatsApp is again more outside America is what it does. And it's not a huge dollar revenue on WhatsApp.
Okay.
So this is how that will go. So who has more training data? Let's take example of what X did. Okay, so Elon Musk, he built X, he built an AI company, and he got X sold to AI company at a huge valuation.
Right.
This is an inversion which is happening.
Yes.
So who owns the AI, who owns the past data is what will dominate.
Right.
If the past company gets all the data and they have their AI, they are going to win. A standalone social media company, that market is gone. There is no new market for it.
Okay.
I expect Trump to kind of facilitate it. Already they're doing Doge. So FTC, everything, they will have more cuts on it. It's more of a notional thing which is happening. Europe...
Let's take this one by one. Let's take this one by one.
Sure.
Not everything has to be said in one answer. Okay, let's take this one by one. Mr. Mehta, the beauty of a discussion is that there are two sides that are being discussed, and that's exactly what's happening here. But to a large extent, this case is also about a personal battle is a very strong word, but a personal conviction of the president, isn't it? Because it started in his previous term. He wants to continue it in this term. What, according to you, are the objectives of the FTC? Because the case is not watertight, but they're just relying on those bunch of emails where, a decade ago, where Mark Zuckerberg had said that these are small companies and so on and so forth. And the case essentially is just that. But what, according to you, are the FTC's objectives from this, from a messaging point of view, not just from an outcome point of view?
I think they want to prove that there are monopolies in play which they want to break. Now, it's very hard for them to prove that Meta is a monopoly in the personal social networking space, which is a keyword here. And like Senthil said, the game is about AI from Meta's side, because they will argue that, look, when you filed the case, we were pretty much Facebook. Now we are Meta, so we are doing a lot of things. So we are not just a social networking play, and we are not just the dominant company. If you look at us as a company, we are not just a social media company. So FTC would want to prove that, hey, this is still a social media company, and there is tangible harm if TikTok gets sold or banned, and tangible benefit for Meta. And it would also want to prove that if anything changes in Instagram or WhatsApp, that is detrimental to users as well.
Okay, Senthil, very quickly, you have a different opinion, and this case could actually go either way. But since it's a watershed moment in the US for big tech, what according to you could be the larger takeaways, let's say for EU, let's say for India, which are also dealing with big tech and data in a big way?
Okay, so like social media era is over, AI has taken over. The third part would be we would have either a XR or a VR device. Apple needs a successor for their iPhone. They are struggling. VR, I think Meta was ahead of in that space, and Google is trying. There are three companies. America wants whatever the next technology, America wants to dominate that. That is the whole purpose. They don't want to break any monopoly what they have. And currently, Europe is in a big trouble because maybe NATO, something else will trigger for them. Earlier, they used to fine EU will fine either Apple or Google $1 billion fine. It was very easy during Biden period. Trump is a different ball game, and it will work differently for them. I don't expect any breakup happening, and I don't expect even Europe to take any serious actions at this point of time. This is not going to work for them. We have to see what will happen in 2-3 years when a new technology, new domain coming into play. Right, and a lot more job losses will happen. A lot of something else has to change.
2-3 years is like decades when it comes to technology, isn't it?
No, we may announce the AGI later this year. So that's the whole part. Who is going to announce first?
Yeah, okay, we'll leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining me on a story that has far-reaching implications for everyone, including the viewers watching this. And on that note, I'm going to slip into a break, come back and talk more about a story that, in fact, is causing ripples around the world, which is Donald Trump taking on the biggest universities in the US. Stay with me, we come back with that story. China has delivered what may be another blow to the American aerospace giant Boeing. Why? Because the tariff war between US and China is escalating. How is that? Well, China has halted all new jet purchases amidst the escalating trade war with Trump 2.0. The 179 Boeing aircraft scheduled for delivery by 2027 now stands in limbo because China has suddenly put a freeze on this, which could cost billions of dollars. Beijing's directive also bans US aircraft parts, putting pressure on the Chinese carriers and sparking fears of soaring maintenance costs. Meanwhile, Boeing shares plummeted 3% in pre-market trading. The move follows President Trump's latest round of punishing tariffs over 145% on Chinese goods. Remember, there's been a 90-day pause for everybody else except China. In retaliation, China increased its tariffs to 125%, and then it came out with an aviation strike. The turbulence may not end here. The Trump administration has opened new national security investigations into semiconductors and pharma when it comes to China, hinting at more tariffs, more escalation, more trade wars between the world's largest and second largest economy. As the US and China dig in, a $650 billion trade relationship now is at the brink of it. And Sanjay Lazar, who's an aviation expert, joins me to talk more about the impact this could have on the sector. Sanjay, now this is a very important development simply because these are very large deliveries that now stand in limbo. While the trade war continues, help us understand the impact this could have on the aviation landscape if the Boeing deliveries actually do not happen.
Good evening, Gaurie. Thank you for having me on your show. Yes, China has just struck back to the US and said that, Boeing deliveries should stop. As you rightly pointed out, about 179 aircraft are pending delivery between 25, 27. Now, the important thing here is China is actually the second largest outside of the United States, customer for Boeing. And though the figures don't actually show, at one point when the MAX issue had hit the world, almost 25% of all aircraft out of Boeing were going to China. So this is really going to impact China in the long term for parts, and it's going to shake up Boeing. On the flip side, there is a positive side to it because Indian carriers are hungry for aircraft, and perhaps they could work out a good deal with Boeing for these 170 or 180 odd aircraft that are available.
It's a large deal, isn't it? It's a large deal. But do you think this is posturing? While of course the Boeing shares have taken a hit, these are very large orders that get decided much in advance. They don't just change suddenly at the drop of a hat. Do you think this is just posturing ahead of the two sides meeting to possibly bring down some of these trade tensions?
Well, it's anyone's guess, to be frank, whether it's pure posturing, because I can see both sides hardening. I don't see any relaxation from either side. The Americans are very serious about what they're doing. And China also has COMAC, its own aircraft manufacturer, and they will encourage them. Let's also remember that, Air India Express has also got a number of aircraft that were supposed to be delivered to China last year and this year. And Air India had got Aeroflot aircrafts, the Airbus 350s, also which were cancelled. So it's not completely out of the picture that some of these may get cancelled. 10, I think, were to be handed over in the next week or 2 weeks, and if the payments are complete. So that will be the true, proof of the pudding. If those deals go through, then we'll know that, this is just posturing. But also the other thing is Ryanair. Michael O'Leary has just gone on to say that if tariffs stay on, and Ryanair is another big consumer for the Boeing aircrafts, they might postpone their 25, 30 aircraft, which they're expecting at the end of this year, next year until tariff.
Very quickly, sir, which is that the impact this will have on the aviation sector from spiraling costs point of view for Indian sector, very quickly.
Well, it's really not going to spiral costs for the Indian sector, so to speak. It's going to hurt China because China has over 1,000 Boeings currently in operation across all its 3-4 airlines. And they're going to face, some pain because if the parts are more expensive, it's going to be more difficult. I think India just needs aircraft, and we're going to lap it up.
Okay, so that's a positive tide to end this on. Yes. Thank you so much for joining me. Shifting focus now to tensions that are simmering in Western Europe and Israel as Benjamin Netanyahu and his son unleash a fiery rebuke of French President Emmanuel Macron. You don't see that every day, but that's what one saw on social media because of Macron's push to recognize a Palestinian state. Macron, speaking on French television, announced plans to recognize Palestine by June, hoping to inspire peace through reciprocal recognition by Israel. But his words sparked fury across Israel in an explosive response online. Netanyahu Jr. didn't hold back, accusing France of neo-imperialism and mocking its overseas territories. On your screens are that Twitter exchange that took place between the two. In fact, Netanyahu's son, he even confused French Guyana with the French Guinea. Netanyahu stood firmly behind his son, calling Macron gravely mistaken and slamming the idea of a Palestinian state as a threat to Israel's very survival. Citing silence from Palestinian leaders after the 7th of October Hamas assault, Netanyahu accused France of dangerous double standards, demanding don't lecture us on peace while ignoring your own colonial realities. In 2025, The Sound of Music comes with a new price, viewers, and it's being paid in installments. Yes, you heard it right. With general admission tickets topping $600, over 60% of Coachella attendees this weekend didn't pay up front. They paid in installments. A trend once reserved for college loans, now being used to finance fun. A $50 down payment secures entry to the desert dream. Travel, hotels, food, well, you talk about thousands more adding up. Marketing. Not about music anymore, it's about affordability, responsibility later. Once young Americans saved for education, and now they budget for entertainment. It's a new trend that has started, a wristband and a payment plan. That's what the model is. From 12-hour parking chaos to soaring ticket costs, Coachella's transformation mirrors America's own, where lifestyle is a luxury, debt is the price of participation. In the age of buy now, pay later, even memories, viewers, come with a payment plan, or so it seems. Aarti Rajaratnam joins me to talk more on this. Aarti, it's not a very happy trend simply because one would see that normally you wouldn't like to have EMIs for something like this, but well, I guess it's when it's about Coachella, there are no rules in the rule book, is it?
I really don't think it's just the Coachella or any of these things. Ultimately, I think it's about a generation that has its priorities mixed up. Their generation, for example, has become extremely visual. So they need to be seen in the right places. They need to be seen with the right people doing the right things. And they need to somehow post it on social media, gather that attention and things like that. So an EMI, particularly the installment plans, were for things like homes, which led to security, things like education that made you employable, made you plan for the future and things like that. Not for something so short-lived. So somewhere I have a feeling that the entire generation has started, disintegrating priorities. I think we need to get back there. Though it's entertainment and it's a lot of fun and everything, if you took a concert in India for that matter, I do have to tell you here that many of the parents are probably footing the bill there, and they are probably doing the EMIs and everything instead of the adolescents, because our teenagers stay with their parents till they're married technically. So I really don't want to blame only their teenagers. Overall, I feel that this fear
but do you
of
think,
missing out
Aarti,
aspect
this is really the flip side of social media at the end of the day, because it's social media really dictating what you want to do with your lives?
It's not social media per se, but the fact that the entire world has become very visual right now. And when I say that, it's not just social media. It's about being seen. Even language and everything has stunted. We've started using shorter forms of everything. So I think when, your entire nervous system is being ruled by something, different from what it was probably even 15 years back or 20 years back. So it's not just social media, I would say, but the entire perception of the nervous system of how the world is. So that's where I would give you a technical side to this whole this chaos that's happening across the globe.
And American consumption and American consumerism anyway has been at the forefront of how the world deals with consumption patterns, isn't it? Because they really set the trend for the world to follow.
Not anymore. I think not anymore. Probably even about 5 years back, consumer trends were set by the US. But overall now, if you notice, it is moving back towards Asia. And a lot of trends are originating in Asia. So I wouldn't say it's just America. It is across the globe. And also the world has shrunk, right? When you look at connectivity, we're connected all across. So I think it would be very myopic to say that America, decides any of these trends. But yes, across the globe, entertainment has taken over and people have forgotten their priorities over a period of time.
And very quickly, Aarti, I'm running out of time, which is that this is specifically about Coachella. But do you think that's really the larger trend here that we're discussing, which is entertainment comes first, maybe responsible expenses come later?
See, the teenage brain is something that's driven by what's called the striatum, which is the risk-taking part. So all of these things come under actually risky behavior because it's quick returns in terms of the reward mechanism in the brain. Unlike, saving up for the future, which is a very responsible habit forming. So I think overall, what I would really add to this whole discussion today between you and me is the fact that we need to start realizing that this is going to be a very dangerous trend going forward. So it's time to, rethink our parenting, rethink the way we are dealing with entertainment and education and priorities.
Aarti, I'll leave it there. All I can say is my young colleagues who helped me put this show together would probably say responsibility and Coachella don't go together. On that note, I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you so much for watching this edition of India Global with me, Gaurie Dwivedi.